And breaking just moments ago, President-elect Trump announcing Caroline Leavitt as his pick for White House press secretary. Leavitt served a similar role in the Trump campaign. She also served as a former assistant press secretary in the previous Trump White House. Meanwhile, House Speaker Mike Johnson today calling on the Ethics Committee to withhold an investigative report on former Representative Matt Gaetz. The Florida congressman resigned from his seat after Trump appointed him as incoming Attorney General. The committee has been probing Gaetz over allegations of sexual misconduct, illicit drug use, and bribery. They were set to vote on releasing the report, but ended up canceling it late Thursday. The Justice Department previously investigated Gaetz, but declined to press charges. Gaetz has so far denied all wrongdoing. Speaker Johnson arguing the House should keep its tradition of withholding reports after members leave the chamber. And President-elect Trump announcing his top campaign spokesperson as White House Communications Director. He also announced his pick to run the Interior Department, a familiar face from this year's Republican primaries. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao reports from Palm Beach.
President-elect Trump on Friday officially announcing that North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum will be his pick to lead the Department of Interior. That's the department managing the nation's public lands and waters and potentially opening them for oil and gas drilling. That means that if confirmed, Burgum will be the one leading Trump's plan of drill, baby, drill. Here's what Trump said about a post last night at Mar-a-Lago and what he said about his energy plan on the campaign trail.
And we're going to do things with energy and with land, interior, that is going to be incredible. We're going to drill a baby drill, and we'll cut your energy prices in half, 50%, within 1 year from January 20th.
Trump's also tapping Burgum to lead a brand new National Energy Council. In a statement, Trump says the council will oversee the path to U.S. energy dominance by cutting red tape and enhancing private sector investments. Burgum, a multi-millionaire former software company CEO turned two-term governor, ran a presidential campaign focused on energy and natural resources. He later dropped out and endorsed Trump and has since been stumping for Trump on the campaign trail. Trump, in a statement tapping Burgum, says with U.S. energy dominance, we will drive down inflation, win the AI arms race with China. And Burgum telling NTD at a campaign stop in recent months that the U.S. needs to stay vigilant about threats posed by China to U.S. infrastructure and the AI competition.
There are real risks out there today. They will bring on over 400 gigawatts of coal in the next 2 years as baseload power to power their economy, power their efforts in artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence is directly related to every aspect of defense, every aspect of healthcare, every aspect of education.
In another round of staff picks, Trump on Friday tapped his campaign communications director, Stephen Chung, as the director of communications in his new White House. Chung served in Trump's first term as the director of strategic response. He has been a staunch defender of Trump throughout this whole campaign, and Trump calls him a trusted advisor. Reporting from West Palm Beach, Iris Tao, NTD News.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is on the verge of becoming the next Secretary of Health. NTD correspondent Jason Blair delves into Kennedy's background and the future he envisions for American healthcare.
I'm here today to tell you how we can make America healthy again.
President-elect Trump plans to appoint RFK Jr. as Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services, or HHS. Kennedy said on X that he looks forward to freeing the HHS from, quote, corporate capture to be able to pursue their mission to make Americans healthy again, as well as together we will clean up corruption, stop the revolving door between industry and government, and return our health agencies to their rich tradition of gold standard evidence-based science. While supporting Trump's campaign run, RFK Jr. put out messages showing some of his intentions if he were to work with a Trump administration. For example, this video he released in late September.
This is what most Americans innocently put into their bodies these days, and most alarmingly, into the bodies of their children.
In the video, he says that since the early 1990s, Americans on average don't live as long as other developed countries, and suddenly more Americans started suffering from chronic illnesses.
Well, a big part of it is our diet. Restaurants that serve contaminated food are fined or shut down. But when it's the government that approves the poisons in our food, a few people get very, very rich, and the toxins end up in every supermarket aisle.
Kennedy has had multiple noteworthy professions, including an environmental law attorney, co-founder of Waterkeeper Alliance, chairman of Children's Health Defense, as well as a successful author. He has a bachelor in American History and Literature from Harvard, a law degree from the University of Virginia, and a master in environmental law from Pace University. Colorado Governor Jared Polis posted that he's excited about Trump's pick of RFK Jr. to the Department of Human Health and Services. He posted on X that Kennedy helped us defeat vaccine mandates in Colorado in 2019 and will help make Americans healthy again by shaking up HHS and FDA. Polis also expressed his support for RFK Jr.'s position on capping U.S. drug prices, revamping government agencies to do better at improving nutrition, and moving away from a heavily pesticide-reliant agricultural system. Kennedy will still need to get the majority vote in the Senate in order to be appointed as the Secretary of HHS. Former Vice President Mike Pence urged Senate Republicans to reject him due to his pro-abortion stance. While Kennedy's role wouldn't directly affect abortion law, Pence says he would be the most pro-abortion Republican appointee to Secretary of HHS in modern history. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
And big vaccine producers, including Pfizer and Moderna, took a hit as soon as Trump nominated RFK Jr. for health secretary. How significant is Trump's nomination, and can Kennedy overcome those challenges to his Make America Healthy Again priorities? Joining me now to discuss is Katie Talento, former Trump White House healthcare official and executive director of Alliance of Healthcare Sharing Ministries. Katie Talento, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, Katie, yesterday, President-elect Trump nominating Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be the head of the Department of Health and Human Services. Here's what Trump had to say.
Today, I nominated him for, I guess, if you like health and if you like people that live a long time, it's the most important position, RFK Jr.
Now, Katie, based on your previous experience as a health professional and working in Trump's previous administration, how consequential will RFK's role be?
Oh, it couldn't be more consequential. I mean, if HHS were the size of if it were a country, it would be the 8th largest country in terms of budget. So it's just massive. Medicare, Medicaid, Indian Health, NIH, FDA, CDC. I mean, it's a giant, giant agency. And to give Mr. Kennedy control over that entire behemoth is a massive amount of power and a great opportunity to really make a huge difference.
Now, Kennedy has been vocal on social media about his positions, saying on Tuesday, quote, "I'll put an end to the revolving door," referring to the relationship between government and big pharma, big food and big agriculture, if you will. How will he go about achieving some of these priorities? And do you think that this is something that should be addressed?
I absolutely do. I mean, it's just absolutely commonplace that everyone who comes in and out of high-level management and executive and political appointments at the department, at any department, goes right on to K Street here in Washington. We like to talk about it. That's where all the lobbyists live. It's where all the lobbying firms work. They go right onto K Street, they come back, maybe they go to Capitol Hill and work for a while, then they go to the executive branch, and they go back into lobbying for industry, the regulated industries that they work over when they're in government. It's really incestuous, and it leads to kind of a bubble that you're in, and you really forget how the impact of your regulations are in the world, but also, worse than that, you forget that you work for the people and not for the industry. When you're at an agency, a regulatory agency, so often our government appointees accidentally, it's not intentional, but they accidentally start to ally themselves with the regulated entities. They're supposed to protect us, the American people, from those entities, not them from us. So I really think this is an important approach.
Katie, I want to get your thoughts. Certain elements in the media landscape, the mainstream media, as some might call it, have really started to target him. They've been reporting on him as an anti-vaccine conspiracy theorist, for spreading falsehoods about the safety and efficacy of vaccines. How can he ultimately get past the opposition that he's already facing with some of these views? On the flip side of things, you see some Democratic governors, specifically the one of Colorado, seeming to somewhat endorse him.
Yeah, so I think Mr. Kennedy's best weapon is himself. When you let him talk about these exact same issues, when you let him speak about his true positions on vaccine safety and effectiveness and the adequacy of the clinical trial data over the past generations, he is extremely articulate and persuasive and compelling, and he's making points that are so important. And most people don't realize, for instance, that the vast majority of vaccines on the childhood schedule have never gone through long-term placebo-controlled trials. Of course, everyone thinks they have, or that you can't sue a vaccine manufacturer if their product kills people. But in fact, they're free from liability thanks to Congress in 1986. Most people don't realize that. And when he starts to talk about these issues, he's so articulate. I think he'll win people over.
Katie, on a personal level, you as executive director of the Alliance of Healthcare Sharing Ministries, where do you want him to start with his Make America Healthy Again goal?
I would really like him to take a hard look at FDA and the drug, vaccine, and food safety regime. That's where he needs to start, because that's what is poisoning our children. In our food, in our drugs, in the vaccines, we need to have serious reforms to the safety procedures, especially when it comes to the food supply. Our food is so tainted compared to food in other countries, and part of that has to do with the lobbying by the big industry interests, and we really need to take a hard look at that. We also need to start looking at the liability protections for vaccine manufacturers. That policy is a policy that only Congress can change, but they need to change it, and I hope he will lead the charge to get that statute changed.
Katie Talento, really appreciate your perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And as Trump prepares for his return to the White House, he's pushing back against multiple media companies, accusing them of biased coverage against him. According to the Columbia Journalism Review, just days before the presidential election, Trump's lawyer issued a letter to the New York Times and Penguin Random House. Columbia Journalism Review says the letter demands $10 billion in damages over articles with false and defamatory statements. It accuses the New York Times of industrial-scale libel against political opponents. Earlier in October, Trump sued CBS News, alleging that a 60 Minutes interview with his presidential opponent, Vice President Kamala Harris, had been edited to help her. CBS dismissed the lawsuit as without merit. Around the same time, Trump accused the Washington Post of making illegal contributions to the Harris campaign. The outlet also said those allegations were without merit. Meanwhile, a new Trump administration could also challenge traditions in the White House press briefing room and expand access to other outlets. Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.